welcome to Let's Talk Personal. I am your host, Frances Reimers. I missed you. 2 weeks without you guys felt like forever and a day, but thank you for joining me and thank you for coming on back in 2018. As you can see, I am alone here at the desk here, and it's because since it's 2018, I kind of wanted to start off the year by talking about what's happened in the last year regarding personal brand and kind of give my 2 cents of perspective about what's going to be happening in the upcoming year, and do that Han Solo without any guests having to chime in. So it's all me all the time today. I hope that doesn't disappoint you too much. If it does, you know where you can lodge your complaints. You can lodge them on Twitter at LTP Brand Radio or on Instagram at Let's Talk Personal. If you'd like to talk personally to me, you can do so on Instagram at Firestarter CEO or on Twitter at Your Firestarter. So to start things off, first, I want to thank everybody for sending the warm holiday wishes. I appreciate you very much. Hanukkah wishes, Christmas wishes, New Year's wishes via text, email, DM, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I appreciate them all, and I appreciate you all very much. Also, I appreciate the kind words and kudos for all of the great shows that we've had so far in 2017. We have some great folks coming on in 2018, and so I hope you dial in for that. But without further ado, let's talk about it. So much has happened in the world of personal brand over the past year. If you feel like you've heard about personal brand a lot in the past year, that's not a coincidence. It's not because you watch my show or follow me on social media, and that's literally one of the only topics I talk about. It's because personal brand has really started to come into its own. Now, a little history lesson, personal branding is not new. This is not a new concept. This has been around for a very long time. It first originated, the first mention of it was really in a book from the 1930s by Napoleon Hill called Think and Grow Rich. If you're thinking of becoming an entrepreneur, I highly recommend that you at least thumb through the pages of that book. It's a great read. But that was really the first time that personal brand was ever really kind of put out there for public consumption. And it kind of went under the radar for a while, and then it resurfaced again around 1997 in an essay that a gentleman wrote, and people kind of took that concept and started moving forward with it. But the reason that I think we've started to see a little bit of a groundswell over the past year around personal brand is because people like myself, celebrities, athletes, politicians have really kind of become to understand the power of our personal brand and the power that each of us have to create our own likeness. So what I like to tell clients all the time is that you are your best publicist, right? Nobody knows your message, how you feel, where you want to go, what you're trying to do better than you. And so your personal brand is truly your professional asset that is yours and yours alone. And its success or failure rides completely with you. And so that concept has been around for a hot minute, but it's really been the rise of social media, which, as all of you know out there, is my second favorite topic on this show. Is social media has really given people a platform and a way for them to take their narrative, to take their story, and get it out to the masses. Now, that has been done to varying degrees of success and varying degrees of quality or lack thereof. But this is the platform people have been given, and this is the platform that we are using in order to tell our story. And in the past year, we've really seen an explosion of people understanding their narrative, understanding their personas. If you recall from many shows in the past, personas are the adjectives that we use to describe ourselves. And those personas are the building blocks of our brand. And our brand is what we put out there to the world. So myself, I like people to think of me as intelligent and funny and creative and a good networker and a good marketing strategist. Those are my personas. Those are the pieces of me that I put out there for public consumption that make up my brand. So whatever you think of yourself and whatever you can back up with actual content and materials is what you're putting out there in your brand. And over this past year, we've just seen this massive explosion of people taking that concept and really doing something with it. And meanwhile, while people have been out there doing that, we've had a very interesting political and social backdrop that I think is influencing people's desire to get out there and put their personal brand out there even more. Now, I'm sure many of you are sitting there going, oh, she's going to talk about Trump. She's going to talk about Trump. Well, I'm not going to talk about Trump, but I am going to talk about Trump. So I kind of halvesies on the Trump topic. I think we're not going to talk about his policies. We're not going to talk about, a lot. Those of you who are fans and followers kind of know what side of the fence I feel on that on a personal level. But what I do want to say about what is happening with people like Donald Trump and other people who are in the limelight is they have kind of paved the way this past year to be more open and authentic with what they're saying and how they're portraying their personal brand online. Now, it doesn't matter if you agree with Trump, don't agree with Trump, think he's, a wackadoo, whatever you think of him. What you can't deny is that he is being authentic to himself and putting it out there for public consumption. And that is a very interesting slice of personal brand that we've experienced in 2017. And so put that little thought on the shelf for a hot second. The other piece that we cannot deny, that we cannot step away from when it comes to brand and authenticity and speaking out, is what we've seen in the athletic world and people, individual players taking a stance against social injustice or other topics that are near and dear to them, whether it's domestic violence or pay disparity or whatever the case may be. Prior to 2017, you didn't really see this mass movement of people using their brand as a platform to speak out against social issues. That was something we really saw in 2017. And again, just like what goes on with our president, it doesn't really matter if you agree with what happened or didn't agree with what happened. You can't deny that the change happened in a very real way. I think also another shift that we've seen in the past year in personal brand is people feeling more open in the past year. I think we're seeing people taking more risks with their brand, saying things that maybe in years past they would have shied away from, posting pictures in the past that they may have not done so. And that's causing a very interesting dialogue. We're seeing a shift in two-way communication to what I would consider to be a call-out culture. Whereas in the past, if we knew somebody was douchey or involved in something that we didn't agree with, we might have hung back and not really said anything or not really pushed them on if their facts are real or is the picture authentic or whatever the case may be. But now people are getting more bold. And I think the rise of the Me Too movement and other movements that we've seen over the past year, we're now getting into a call-out culture where people are no longer shying away from reaching out and calling people out on their BS, on their facts, on their photos, on whatever that may be. And that is an interesting offshoot to personal brand. Because if you're putting something out there, if you're putting pictures out there or facts or what have you, and people are testing you on that in real time, that's a brand challenge. That's a crisis communications challenge, and it's challenging enough for a seasoned communications and marketing strategists to deal with that, let alone the lay person who this is not their job, this is not their career. But we are now, our culture and the way that we communicate with one another is absolutely shifting in another direction. And I think we, as the general public, need to be prepared for that. People are putting more out there, but are being tested more about what they're putting out there. And so that becomes a very unique brand challenge, not just for individuals, but for companies and organizations and government agencies. People are wanting more, but they're challenging more. And that's going to be an interesting challenge in the year ahead. And so 2017 has absolutely seen what I think, I've been doing marketing and PR for more than 15 years, and I honestly can't recall a time in my career where communications has taken such a drastic shift in a year's time. Other people might disagree with me. I don't really care. But I really think that in this past year that we've seen a very, very dynamic shift, not only in the way that we talk about ourselves, but in the way we communicate with one another. And that brings about a whole host of unique challenges, which we're going to dive into in a second. So I'm going to take a real short break. And when we get back, we're going to get right into engagement and what that means and what you all can look forward to in the coming year. So hang on, and I'll be right back. Oh, hello. Just joking. So before we went to the break, we were talking about the evolution of conversation in 2017 and what people are doing and how it's shifting. If you agree or disagree, feel free to go ahead and write in. I have my phone right here. I'm seeing it. Yes, I am wearing a romper tonight. Thank you for dialing in and asking. I am wearing a romper. You know how much I love a romper. But before we left, we were talking about the shift in communication, and I alluded that this is going to change the way that we are engaging with one another. And engagement is a huge part of brand success, especially in the social media space. There are two things, in my opinion, that truly dictate success in the social media space. One is consistency, being consistent every single day, posting multiple times a day at the same times every day, so that you train your audience like Pavlov's dog to know when they're going to hear from you. So number one is consistency. Number two is engagement. Social media was created, as I often preach on my social media often. Social media was created for us to engage with one another. Social media was not created for you to lurk on other people's accounts while, you're in the bathroom or cooking dinner or, bottle feeding your kid. Social media was, please, by all means, do that. But it was invented for us to engage with one another. So I hope in the coming year you have plans to engage with as many of your fans and followers and people that you follow as possible, because that's really what those platforms are made to do. But I think the communication shift in the past year has kind of opened the floodgates for even more engagement, and your followers and fans and friends and family are going to be expecting even more engagement than they ever have before. They're wanting you to talk about them, post about yourself, but also, more importantly, respond to them when they reach out to you, or respond back, or do some sort of reciprocity. People want to know that you're paying attention to what's being said about you, what's being posted, and the more popular you become, or the more influential you become, the more this is going to become something that is not a convenience for you. It's going to be something that is required of you. We're starting to grow more and more and more into a society of instant gratification. Remember the last time you sent a text to somebody and got all ass hurt when they didn't respond to you immediately? Well, the way you felt about that non-response to your text message is the way a lot of your fans and followers are going to feel if they like or respond to you, or whatever the case may be, and you're radio silent. It's more work if you're sitting there on the other end of this screen going, lady, I don't have this time. I know, sorry, but that's the way this is moving, and we're not going to go back. So for those of you that are longing for that easier, simpler time when we all picked up the phone and just talked to each other pleasantly at our dining room tables, that day is done. We've that ship has sailed. We are now in this day and age where this is the state of affairs. So what can you do? What can you do to make sure that this doesn't overtake your life? Now, if you're somebody like me who lives for this shit, then yes, I love it to overtake my life. Tweet at me, text at me, all of the above. I love it. If I respond, I try my best. If you say something creepy, I'm probably not going to respond to you. But if you say something appropriate and responsible, then I'm definitely going to respond. I love it. But if you're that gigantic group of Americans or people around the world that just don't want social media to be taking over your life, what can you do? How can you keep this manageable? So what I say to a lot of my professional services clients, I'm getting comfortable here. What I say to a lot of my professional service clients who have day jobs, they're lawyers and doctors and CPAs and pharmacists and teachers. What I say to these clients is you just have to train yourself to have a period of your day, or periods of your day, that are dedicated solely to engagement. You engaging with others and responding to those who have engaged with you. So I set aside small periods of my day, usually 10, 15 minutes spurts throughout the day. One, to give myself a break from writing or talking on the phone or other things that I'm doing, but they are on my calendar. They are specifically set to give me time that I devote only to going on social media and either responding to people who have reached out to me, or liking, following, retweeting, sharing content that I think is great. Because I want my followers and fans and people who I think are influencers to know that it's really me on the other end of the phone, and I'm really truly engaging with you. And so I just little blocks of time. If you want to get up from your desk and respond and tweet and do those sorts of things as you're walking so that you're getting some exercise and checking social media at the same time, mazel, more power to you. If you can do that, some people can't do that. Don't injure yourself. Don't walk yourself into oncoming traffic. But it just gives you a little break in the day. So you're really not losing time. You're really not, not taking away from major other things of your life that you should and could be doing. But it is really simple and manageable. And what I tell people all the time is it makes a huge difference. It makes a huge, huge difference. If you're just a lurker, if you just get on and look at people's stuff, but you don't like, you don't share, your accounts are not going to grow. People want to engage with real lives humans that are doing real life stuff. So if you're just a lurker and you're wondering, why have I stayed at, 100 followers for a month? It's because you're not engaging with anyone. And on the flip side, you're probably not posting or doing anything that people want to engage with. And so talking to people and liking what they're doing is only one half of the game. The other half of the game is you yourself have to be doing stuff that's interesting and engaging. And that's where people really kind of, go adrift. They get really wrapped around the axle of how to make content, consistently make content that is going to follow the brand that they're trying to create or move them in a new direction that they're trying to go. The thing I always want to, the first thing I always talk to clients about is, first of all, relax. This is not a, DEFCON 1 situation. If you post something that doesn't, knock it out of the park, don't worry. We try again. Marketing is definitely not a one and done science here. But I preach about it constantly on my social media platforms. I talk about it in blogs all the time. Strategy, strategy, strategy. Planning out your content, planning out your content, planning out your content. The more that you plan out your content in advance, one, it takes away the anxiety of having to think of something interesting and, engaging week after week after, or day after day after day, if you will. Like for me, for example, every Sunday I sit down usually in front of the TV with a drink, and I'm super comfy in my sweats, and I sit there and I say, okay, what is happening in my week that would be interesting to my audience, or what is happening in my week that would be great to show for my brand, or what is a good teachable moment that is happening in this week, and how do I take that and package it for my audience. And I sit there and I literally, in a spreadsheet, in a Google Doc, I sit there and say, okay, Monday morning is this post, Monday afternoon is this post, Tuesday morning is this post, Tuesday afternoon is this post. And then I make the content. So I take the picture, I do the graphic design, I write the blog, I create the video, whatever the case may be. Or I put time on my calendar later in the week to make the video or take the picture or whatever the case may be. I know that sounds really methodical and calculating and that sort of thing, but that's what you got to do. That's marketing. That's strategic marketing. And if you're growing your personal brand, you are becoming a strategic marketer. Now, I wouldn't, put that on your resume, but that's in essence what you're doing. That's strategic marketing when you're thinking about the message, who's supposed to receive it, how are they going to receive it, and what platform it's going to go on. That's in essence marketing 101. And so save yourself the anxiety every week of trying to rack your brain of interesting things to come up with every single day as you go along. If you take time, it doesn't have to be Sunday, it can be Wednesday or whatever the day of the week works for you, but sit down and look at your calendar and figure out what would be interesting. The other thing that I remind people all the time is, who are you talking to? So I see posts all the time of people post a really cool picture and then they have a write-up with it that has nothing to do with the picture. If you just want to take a picture of yourself and to look cute, well, then do that, but own it. Don't post a picture of yourself like cute and then talk about, real estate strategy. It's message confusion. So be clear about the intention. Now, I will throw myself under the bus every once in a while. I've posted pictures just trying to be cute. It happens. We all have self-esteem days. But consistently be thinking about if the message of the visual is matching the text of what you're trying to do. And most importantly, who are you talking to? What we often get in a habit of doing is we post, and I can tell you, we marketers are definitely guilty of this, probably more than anybody else, is we post something thinking that we're talking to our target audiences, which are potential clients and that sort of thing, but we're actually talking to our peers. And so what I mean by that, so if you are putting up a post where you're trying to talk to potential clients, you're like, this visual, this action is what I want to get that client. Well, make sure that you're saying what the client wants to hear, not what you want to say, because you are not your audience. So whenever you create something, you need to be thinking of the audience. What's going to move them to action? Is there a call to action? Because if there's not a call to action, then the audience doesn't know what you want them to do. So if you want them to schedule an appointment, be clear. If you want them to share the post, be clear. But make sure first and foremost, make sure you're clear about who it is that you're talking to. It's okay to do posts that are specifically just talking to your peers. I do it all the time. That all I care is if people in the branding or marketing or agency community think I'm great shit. Like, there are times that some of my posts, especially those of you who follow me on Instagram, Firestarter CEO, those of you that follow me there are posts that I don't care if a potential client likes it. If they do, gravy. But really, my post is geared at my peers, to show them what I'm doing, show them maybe a new client, maybe a new thought I've had, a topic idea. But then there are truly posts that I make that are specifically targeted at my target market, at potential clients that I'm trying to reach. And then sometimes there's posts that are geared at family and friends, or are showing a little bit more of an expansion of my brand. But be very cognizant as the poster, as the person doing the posts, of who is the intended audience. You should never post something, especially if you're doing this for a business or you are strategically trying to grow your personal brand. You shouldn't be posting and just being like, oh, whoever likes it, likes it. Like, when I'm going through my likes, there are very specific people that I'm hoping to catch in my web when I post things. And you should be thinking that way too. If you're a lawyer, for example, and you're an entertainment lawyer and you want to get more clients in that space, you should be consciously making content and consciously creating a call to action in your posts that would be engaging to entertainers, athletes, that sort of thing, people who would need your services. Now, if you're an entertainment lawyer and you're talking to your peers, well, then of course you would post something to the effect of maybe a new rule or regulation or change in your industry. See the two differentiations there? So just be very more, in the coming year, I want you all to be a lot more cognizant about who's getting the message, who's the intended recipient of what it is that you're trying to get, and keep track of your content. Part of the reason that I put everything into a Google spreadsheet is, well, one, because I'm anal retentive, but two, because I like to go back through my spreadsheets and see what content worked and what content didn't. I mean, what content just flopped, because believe me, and there's not a marketer alive that can't agree with me on this statement. There have been times where I posted something and I thought it was going to go gangbusters, and it was like crickets, just tumbleweed down the street. And then there'd be times where something was completely nonchalant that I put up, and people went cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs over it. I keep track of these things. Your analytical data on each one of your social media platforms also helps you keep track of these things. But I make side notes to myself as well about what of my content was working. Where was I? What was the time of day? Was there a particular hashtag or something? Anything that I can ascertain in terms of my data to help me figure out where the post went right or where it went wrong. Sometimes just because a post didn't resonate with people at one particular time doesn't mean that it may not down the road. So don't totally trash can something if it doesn't do well in a post. You can recycle something at a later date, but the only way you know that, or when to recycle or not recycle, or use a hashtag or not, is if you keep track of this stuff. And analytical data on your social media sites are really helpful. Social listening tools are also really helpful if you're trying to keep track of conversations, what people are saying, where the pulse is. Every Sunday when I sit down and do my content, I do get on a few social listening tools to see what's trending. What are people talking about? How can I attach myself to a trending topic, even if maybe it's not something that's relative to me specifically, but how can I maybe attach myself or give my 2 cents on something that's happening in that space in that given time? This is a really great way to help expand your message out a little bit. So that's a little bit of Content 101. So we've talked about the message and how it's being delivered and who's out there and who's listening and who's not. And we've talked a little bit about content. I'm going to take another break to give myself a second to breathe. But when we get back, we're going to jump right into social media, what's happening, what platforms are working, not working. So hang tight, and I'll be back in just a second. Um, while on the break, I did get a text message asking how many, the question was, how many hours a day should someone spend on social media? Well, I can't answer that for you because you have to live your own life. Now, if you follow my lead, you're on social media literally probably 20 out of 24 hours of a day. But that's not healthy. I'm not saying that's right. I don't, there's no, live your life, do what you want. There's no right or wrong of how much time you spend on social media. As I alluded to before, do carve out small periods of time in your day that you are engaging, posting, responding, liking, finding new followers, following people who are following you. Do carve out little pieces of your time every single day to do those activities. How much of your day, I think, is completely up to you. I don't know your responsibilities in a given day. I only have me to take care of, so I can sit on social media as long as I want. But if you have a spouse and children and other responsibilities, you can't hang out on social media all day, or you shouldn't hang out on social media all day. So that, I think that's a personal choice. I would never sit here and say, if you spend 6 hours a day on social media, your brand is just going to go gangbusters, because I don't believe that. I believe that's a personal choice of how long you want to spend on there, and you need to find your level of comfort. But I do recommend at a very small minimum that you do go on there in 10, 15-minute bursts, a couple of times throughout the day, to check in, to engage, and to be visible and be active. So that's a non-answer to an answer. But it's totally your choice. It's totally up to you because you have other responsibilities, and obviously, if you should be watching your kids, shouldn't be on social media. But it's totally up to you. But there's no right or wrong of if you don't do X amount, your brand is not going to grow gangbusters. Really, I will say it, and I'll say it, and I'll say it. Brand growth and social media growth is two things: consistency and engagement. So if you are consistently posting and you are consistently engaging, I think you have a better chance at success than any other. Those are really the thing. Another question during the break was, do I use any platforms to post if I'm not available? Yes, I do. I'm a big fan of Hootsuite until they changed their policies. They changed their policies to limit to only, I think it's 30 or 31 posts in a month for their free option. They have paid options that allow you to post more. And so I do use Hootsuite from time to time, mostly for my Twitter account. But I do use Hootsuite from time to time, especially if I know I'm going to be in long meetings or I'm going to be traveling a considerable amount and won't be able to actually post something. And I want to get an important message, whether it's an appearance or something is launching. I will use something like Hootsuite to make sure that things are going out at a consistent time. If those who follow me know I usually post between 7 and 8 a.m. every morning. So if I know that I'm not going to be available at that time for whatever reason, I'll use Hootsuite. Or there are other platforms out there. Hootsuite is just the one that I use to post on my behalf. So if you're a busy professional or anybody really, and you want that extra assistance in making sure that your posts are going out consistently because you're off doing other things like taking care of kids or traveling to work or whatever the case may be, that's a great way. And you should utilize those platforms if you haven't already. And if you don't like Hootsuite, like I said, there's many others to work from. You don't have to use that one. But also, I mentioned before the break talking about analytics. Hootsuite also provides great analytics that helps you helps you see the performance of your activity and where things were hitting or missing, seeing what's going on in your various universes, whatever accounts that you have attached to it. And so it's a great way to kind of consolidate that information. and have it all in one place. So yes, even I use platforms like Hootsuite to help me get information out there when I'm super swamped or super busy, or just know that I really need to be focused on other things rather than sitting on social media. Absolutely. If you want to use those tools, use them effectively. It's a great way, especially for busy professionals who have a whole other career that they should be focusing on. It's a really great way to have them getting content out there consistently, without them physically having to do it. If I do upload my Hootsuite for whatever reason, I do it on Sunday nights right after I make my content calendar. So it's kind of all a continuous line of activity. So sit down, create the calendar, create the content, or schedule the content for a later time to be made, and then upload it into Hootsuite if that's the case. And so that's kind of the process of activity, and it's worked for me for 15 years. So I'm sure you can make it work for you too. But that's really how how the sausage gets made, for lack of a better term, and how I do this week in and week out while managing clients' accounts and other things. That's how I keep my marketing um, uh, train moving when I'm out there doing things for other people. Now, just because you upload things in Hootsuite doesn't mean you can't post things in real time. There's no law saying that if you had something go out at 7 a.m. through your Hootsuite and something really awesome happens in your life at 7:05, you can't possibly put that up. You absolutely can. It's totally fine. No one's going to be like, "Hey, what happened?" Mostly because people just don't care that much to do that. But Hootsuite just guarantees that your audience is going to continually get information from you. But by all means, if something amazing or wonderful or something pops in your head in real time, by all means, you can put it out there in real time, as it is happening. So before the break, I alluded that when we came back, we would be touching, for the last segment of the show, we'd be touching on social media. And we've kind of been talking about it a little bit, well, pretty much all of it throughout the show, but I wanted to talk about the individual platforms specifically, because one of the biggest questions I always get almost every week after every show, or in between, is what is my favorite platform and why? And we talk about it on the show all the time. My favorite platform has been, for the past year, a little bit longer, has been Instagram. And clearly, I'm not the only one who shares that sentiment. Instagram is the fastest growing social media platform out there. And I think the reason that it's gaining in popularity is because they have their stories function. It's pictures, it's video. All of the functions of Instagram, in my opinion, are super easy to use. Unlike LinkedIn or Facebook, where hashtags are completely ineffective. Twitter and Instagram, the hashtags are very effective, and people really are searching for particular topics via a hashtag, and people are getting very creative about hashtags, and thus unlocking larger communities that people can tap into. And so I love Instagram. It's my number one lead generator as a business owner. That's where the majority of my clients and my leads have come through. And I think it's because Instagram allows you to tell a full and complete story in a way that people are actually going to digest. The average consumer, their attention span is about 8 seconds long. And so if somebody only needs to look at a picture of you and decide if they like it or don't like it, that's about the width, the depth and breadth of our attention span these days. And so Instagram is really tapping into that. And so if you can tell your brand story and manage your brand story via that platform, I think you're really going to see a lot of growth and depth with your brand. And so over the past year, as I've grown Firestarter and grown my contacts for my business, Instagram by far has been the number one tool to help me do that. That said, other platforms have been tremendous. After for me personally, after Instagram, my second favorite platform is LinkedIn. A lot of people are kind of like, boo LinkedIn, but I love it. It allows you to cyber stalk in a way that a lot of other platforms don't, and you just learn so much about people, their careers, their passions, who they're connected to, who they know. And if you're a small business owner like myself, being able to have that data in real time is huge. It's invaluable. I tell people, if you're a business owner, you're an entrepreneur, or you're trying to grow your brand, in my opinion, having the premium LinkedIn account, they are not paying me for this endorsement, but having a premium account on LinkedIn is, in my opinion, it's been invaluable to me. Being able to send messages to people that I'm not connected to, being able to look at people's accounts that are a third level contact that you would normally not be able to have the access to them. That has been invaluable to me over the past year in growing my business. Another function is, for those of you who are active LinkedIn users, being able to see who looked at your account in that given day or in a given time span has been invaluable. Anytime somebody looks at my account who I do not know, who I'm not connected to, I immediately reach out to them. And you can only do that if you have a premium account. But I reach out to them and say, hey, thanks for stopping by my account. Let me know if there's anything I can do. And just that simple act has really been able to open up many, many doors to people that live in other parts of the United States that I would have never met in person. And so for the growth of my business and the growth of my brand, LinkedIn has been vital. Also, the content sharing function of LinkedIn has been absolutely vital to the growth of my business. If you are not using the articles function on LinkedIn, or you're not part of groups and engaging in those groups on LinkedIn, or posting now, LinkedIn allows for video content. So if you are not utilizing those functions on LinkedIn as a professional, as someone who's trying to grow their brand, you're truly kind of leaving money on the table. Those functions are so easy to use. They're so user friendly. To not use them is kind of silly. So if you're like, man, I really want to put content out there, but you don't have a website of your own, or you don't want to build an apparatus in which to share your content, putting it on LinkedIn is one of the best places to put it. Before I started Firestarter and I worked at my old employer, PCI, I didn't have my website. And so I would post my blogs or my thought leadership pieces on LinkedIn. And that's really what seeded my follower base that I took with me when I started Firestarter. So I did thought leadership pieces that supported PCI and my work with PCI when I was at PCI, but it really put my knowledge out there that created this base of followers for me that followed me when I went over to Firestarter, and that truly has made a huge difference when I hung out my shingle of my company, because unlike other business owners, I didn't have to prove that I had knowledge in this space. It was kind of a known entity, even amongst people who have never worked with me before, simply because I had put my thought leadership pieces out there for mass consumption. So if your 2018 goal is to get ahead in your current job or look for a new job, and you're wanting to learn how to differentiate yourself from the pack, the tools right there on LinkedIn are really excellent ways to put together thought leadership pieces and put it out there where people can see it and find you, and use those keywords to find you quicker, better, faster. And it's your platform. So, you're not sharing the stage with somebody else. It's your piece. It's connected to your account. So they know, people know who wrote it. And so why not? It's free. even if you don't have the premium, you can still post articles there. So why not utilize that platform? Or if you have video, why not use that platform? Of course, I still use Facebook, still use Twitter. They are great and have their uses. Facebook for me, of course, I have a Firestarter Facebook page, but I use Facebook for my personal. My Facebook community is mostly friends, close family, close associates that are kind of in my inner circle, and I use that for my personal space. Twitter is more of an information aggregator, if you will. Facebook is kind of turning into the town center of information and thought leadership and news. That's what Twitter is slowly evolving into. And so I use Twitter to share news, to share resources, sometimes random sarcastic musings, but I use Twitter to engage with people on an informational level, a thought leadership level, content sharing level of mostly industry to industry, but also to keep tabs on people who are useful for me, useful to my clients. That's usually what I use that platform for. And of course, this has changed over the past year. Rewind about a year ago, people were whispering on the side that Facebook was dead. But, Facebook Live which some of you are watching me on right now, Facebook Live has kind of reemerged Facebook and made it relative again to all of us. And so I think that's only going to continue to grow in 2018. So if you're not utilizing Facebook, get back on it. Get back onto Facebook Live because it's been an invaluable tool. And Facebook is getting much more sophisticated with its digital ads, and they keep getting more sophisticated all the time. And so if your 2018 marketing goals include doing paid advertising, definitely do not count out Facebook. But I love Instagram, which is owned by Facebook, their advertising platforms. And Twitter as well. There is definitely a market there and a need and a use for somebody to do an ad campaign on Twitter. But I always warn clients, don't forget the paid advertising opportunities that are on LinkedIn. I've used those a few times and have gotten a few nibbles, a few potential clients simply off of the advertising opportunities for LinkedIn. So if you've never used them, never investigated them, I really do encourage you to use those. I've used them and they've really helped. As we wrap up this week's show, can you possibly believe an hour has gone by this fast? Listening to me for an hour of your life. We're almost to the end of this week's show, but I wanted to end this week throwing myself under the bus the way I do my guests every week by talking about whose content is giving me life. The one person whose content is definitely giving me life right now, I would have to say, I think Chrissy Teigen is winning on the internet right now. Her posts are very funny, very interesting, and even with some of the negative things that are going on, accusations being hurled at her and her husband right now, which are just unbelievable. But I love her posts. I think she's great. I think she's putting real, genuine, authentic content out there. And I think her behavior of content is a complete byproduct of what has been happening in 2017 as a whole. So if you don't follow her, do. I think she's great. The social media trend that I wish would stop. You all know how I feel about #blessed. But along the lines, the other social media trend that I think that we really need to curb is people being preachy. People are getting a little out of control with telling people how they should feel and how they should motivate themselves and how they should get out of a rut or whatever the case may be. Just focus on what you get paid to do. If your job is to market, then talk about marketing. If your job is to be a personal trainer, stick to that. I don't need you to give me, life advice if you're my personal trainer. So sorry if that offends a few of you, but I think we're getting a little preachy. Let's get back in the lane of doing our jobs and not so much trying to be everybody's spiritual advisor. That's my number one pet peeve right now, and I'm probably going to get some hate mail about that, but Whatever. But this has been the state of personal brand in 2017. I hope that you got some nibbles, some little tidbits, if you will, out of this about your personal brand and what you should and shouldn't be doing. My hope is that you are working on your personal brand in 2018. And if you need assistance, of course, you always know where to find me. If you want to follow the show, you can do so on Twitter at LTP Brand Radio, or if you would like to follow us on Instagram, it's Let's Talk Personal. If you want to connect with me, and I hope that you do, you can do so on Instagram at Firestarter CEO or on Twitter at Your Firestarter. And of course, you can always find my company information at www.yourfirestarter.com. As always, I am Frances Reimers. Tune in next week when we have our first guest of 2018, pastor and cultural diversity expert. My dear, dear friend Ben Mann is going to be joining me on here to talk all things religion and cultural diversity, and Lord knows what else. We'll probably break out into musicals, I'm sure. So tune in at that time. I'd like to thank my wonderful sponsors, Co-Create and Columbia Lighthouse for the Blind. If you have any questions, you know where to find me. Otherwise, I'll see you next week. Take care.